All right. Thank you so much, you guys, for leaning in today. I'm really excited to have Courtney come and speak to us today. So, for those of you that don't know a little bit about her, she's a mom of two boys, married to college swim coach at Notre Dame. Angie actually lives in South Bend. So, you guys are neighbors. Former teacher. Her last position was higher education administration. She's been a coach for 6 years. She's a lifetime 8-star, diamond, 3-star in the second CBC, and diamond in her third, and a 4-time elite coach. So lots of amazing things. I asked Courtney to come speak because I love how she pours into her team. You guys have a desire to grow. That's what this group is. So this is a small group of leaders that plugs in on Mondays, Courtney, just to help them kind of build their business to be business builders outside of the team. And so I wanted to have other people come and share their what they tell their coaches and what's helped them. So you guys get a taste of someone else besides just me, and you can ask questions and learn and grow. So I'm gonna go ahead and hand it over and let you go.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, I'm excited to share with you today. I hope that I'm able to send you guys away with a few takeaways and things you can kind of take into action and apply into your business. I know Kelly gave me a few specific things she wanted me to kind of speak and touch on. I want to just kind of like share of some of like how I got started with coaching, which some of you might know, but it kind of is really important in defining what made me show up every single day and do this. I was recently working in administration, higher ed. I was a coordinator of disability resources at a university. And I started in preschool, and I always thought I'd be a kindergarten teacher. That was just like where I just always felt like I was supposed to be. And I fell in love with teaching preschool. But what I really loved was one of the things that I got to do as a preschool teacher was working at a university, and I also got to mentor the college students. Now, they were my peers. I mean, I was a new graduate. I had no idea what I was really doing in the classroom, but I think so much of that initiative relates to coaching in that you're not really going to know a lot of what you're doing until you start doing it. So you have to really just be willing to fly by the seat of your pants, which I know is really hard for like emerald personalities or like type 1 enneagrams, a perfectionist. Like I totally get it. I am not any of that. So maybe that gave me a little bit of an advantage. I am the person who, like when our kids get new toys, my husband laughs at me. Like I'll just put it all together and he'd be like, there's like 4 missing pieces. And I'm like, oh crap. Okay. So let's take it all apart and like, let's read the instructions. And he's like, why didn't you just read the instructions and like save yourself the time? But I'm just like reading the instruction was going to take too long. Like I wanted to go, I wanted to do it. And you kind of learn through that. So while some people might like say like, that's a total hot mess, I think in our business, such as coaching, it really helps to have a lot of that, I don't know, I'm going to break it first and then I'll fix it, right? Like, because you don't learn unless you fail and you don't learn unless you try. So like, if you just keep sitting and waiting to collect information, we never really get going and we don't get to experience the good stuff, right? I mean, parenting's like that too. I mean, I think everyone on here is moms, right? Like parenting does not come with a manual. We have to just kind of figure it out. We talk to our friends. We, take advice from wherever we can get it, and we apply it into however it works best for us. Again, that's coaching. So when we left Ohio University, my husband's a college swim coach. So when I married my husband, and even before we were married, I knew that I was going to be on this adventure with him where, you know, my career was probably going to have to take a back seat. And I think when you kind of acknowledge that, it's different than when you actually have to accept it. So like saying that, okay, well, I will just be flexible in my career and find something in education because that's a very broad range of things you can do. Like I wasn't going to limit myself to just needing to be a classroom teacher. It was great because it was all working out for me until it just wasn't working out for me anymore. So we moved to Buffalo, New York. He took his first, well, I guess technically it was his second, but coaching, like he was we met in grad school. So he was like doing his graduate assistant at Ohio University, but he then accepted his position at the University of Buffalo. We were there for 4 seasons, and we moved there. I wanted to make the shift to higher education. I just felt called to work with adult learners versus the little brains. I was like, I want to work with just bigger versions of toddlers essentially. So I accepted an internship in the athletics department to be like a tutor. Like I was a tutor, I was a learning strategist, and I was able to kind of take everything I knew about learning and apply it to college athletics. I was a college athlete and I was paid $9,000 for the year. Like that was my internship. But my husband and I, we weren't even married yet. We were engaged, and I said, this is the time. Like We don't have any student loans. We were very lucky to not have any debt because of our athletics covered our college. Our graduate school was paid for because the university paid us for it. We were working full time. I was like, this is it. Like, if I want to make a shift in my career, I need to do it before we have kids, before we have bills we need to pay. And we just lived very humbly for that next 12 months, and we were fine. It's amazing, like, how small your needs are really before you have children, right? Like, our finances were like, other than like us cutting back on how we wanted to spend our social money, that was really it. So, and then they offered me a full-time position that next year, and I just fell in love with college athletics. I loved working with student athletes. I loved working with the coaches and mentoring them and traveling with the teams. Again, we didn't have kids yet, so I had like an abundance of flexibility, and I could, I said yes way too much, but I learned a lot. So then 4 years later, my husband accepted his dream position at Virginia Tech. And it was at this point I knew, oh boy, like, you're accepting your dream position. I'm probably going to have to take a little step back, because we're moving to a very rural area where it's just like the employment opportunity is just not as abundant as it was when you live like not that Buffalo is a huge city, but it's a much bigger area than Blacksburg, Virginia. So I applied for a job at Radford University. I interviewed at that job, and I'll never forget leaving that interview and calling my husband and saying, they're going to offer me this position and I'm going to be bored out of my mind. And he was like, how did you know that? And I was like, well, it was really easy to take inventory. Like, I'm the kind of worker that I want people in my office all the time. Like, if I'm going to be here and showing up for 8 hours, I want to be busy. I don't want to just be sitting and scrolling social media, which did eventually benefit me, I suppose, as I found this opportunity in my boredom. But I was in the office. It was a grant-funded program. If you know what like Upward Bound is, this was the extension of that for college. Our role was to help these students graduate and matriculate from college. And they were first generation, low income, students with disabilities, one of the three categories, and some kind of fell into all three. And so it really kind of was a lot of what I was doing in athletics. Like, the population looked very similar without the special talent. So, and also when you work in athletics, like, if they don't show up, I'm just like, hey coach, Johnny's not here yet. Like, they had a reason they had to come in. So I now was working with students that weren't motivated to come in and seek extra help. And so when I was in the interview for that day, they had a log book, where every student would log in for the day. And actually it was a weekly login. I interviewed on a Thursday. There were 3 students' names on that sheet of paper. The office served 250 students. So I knew, but out of like severe desperation, I was like, well, I need a job. Like, I have to be employed. And so I took the job. At the end of the first week, I had consumed everything I could possibly consume on the internet. I called my old boss and I was like, I made a mistake. Like, I should not have taken this job. I should have been more patient. Like, we could have been fine for a few months without a job. And he was like, he was such a great mentor. And he said, something positive will come of this. Like, something will come out of this that will open your eyes to something else. And it did, because I learned a lot about myself in terms of my work ethic, being the person that, I want to always take initiative. I want to bring things to the table. Well, I completely overwhelmed that office because they were totally fine doing nothing and accepting a paycheck. And I realized that that's 98% of America. That's totally fine. Clocking in every day and accepting a paycheck. I was in the dean of students office every month asking what jobs were open on campus and where he could move me. And my husband was like, I can't believe you're just beating down the door of the dean of students. I was like, I refuse to accept that this is where I'm supposed to be sitting. Like, I am called to serve people and I serve nobody. Like, I cannot get students in this office. They don't know me. They have no relationship with me and they don't care to build one. So long story short, he moved me over to disability resources. It was better, but it was still just, when you work in a position like that, again, where the only time you have a student in your office is when there's a problem. Like, they're not receiving the accommodations they're supposed to receive, or the professor is like completely ticked off about something. I was putting out fires and I was on defense all day. And it's incredibly exhausting when you play defense all day. I wanted to play offense. I wanted to help a student make a stride towards something, but that wasn't my job. My job was to keep everybody happy on campus, to bridge the gaps, to communicate, to be the liaison, which had a lot of positive things because I did really get to be a voice for students when people didn't understand. But again, it was just defense all day. So you get to this point where you're just mentally exhausted from truly doing nothing. Like, boredom, I didn't really understand what boredom looked like until I faced it head on, but it's very lethargic, it's very lazy, it's very complacent, and you just don't care anymore. You know, like you show up and you just kind of check the boxes off and you go through the motions, but I wasn't emotionally attached to any of my job. I was just doing whatever I needed to do. So I had been Carrie Legault. Erin Garapi is my actual upline, and then Carrie Legault is her upline. The three of us grew up swimming together in New England. I had seen them posting about Beachbody coaching. I had no idea what Beachbody was. I had never done a home fitness program. I'd never had a shake, even as a college athlete, like never had a protein shake. And I was like, I don't want a shake. I don't really want to do home fitness, I don't think. And I didn't understand that this was a business opportunity, and I didn't know that it could be a vehicle to take me out of the position I was in and provide me with joy. You know, I wanted to help people and I was not helping anybody. And so I was really at the mercy of waiting for a position to open, going through the application processes, hoping, like in the grand scheme of things, like my role, as boring as it was, I had a phenomenal supervisor who was very flexible to family life. She was a single mom. She understood what it was like to be a mom on call. Like, if at this point now I have one child and I'm spending 1 hour a day with him in a job I don't love, and my husband with his schedule, if Brody was sick, it was on me. I had to leave. If something happened, like Aaron didn't have the flexibility to leave, like he might be on the deck coaching and I'm like, I have to go. So she was very flexible. Like that was like the one positive thing. She was very flexible. So I thought about that in the back of my head. If I accept another position, maybe I'll have a supervisor that's not as flexible. And then what happens? We have no family here. I have no backup care. So when I saw them posting about Beachbody, I kind of rolled my eyes. Carrie invited me every single month for an entire year in my inbox. I didn't answer any of them. I wasn't even that person that said, tell me more, or no thank you, or whatever. I just closed every single one. If I could scroll up far enough, I could show you. And it wasn't until she posted her resignation letter from her teaching job that I thought, this is a business opportunity. This is an opportunity for me to fill what I can't change. I can't change that I have to come to this job every day. I can't fix that. So how can I supplement my day? How can I fill the void that I feel and be able to, help people in a different capacity? But I also thought, maybe this is an opportunity for me to not have to come back to this job. Maybe it would allow me to spend more than an hour a day with my son. And I knew, I kind of like wrapped my brain around it, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to start with me. Like, our business is amazing because, again, you have to work on you every single day. Like, the best, most successful pieces and parts in your business are always going to be when your cup is full and you're really working on yourself. And it had been 2 years since I had really been on a consistent fitness routine or fueled my body appropriately. I mean, we're buying organic strawberries for my son, and I'm like eating handfuls of GMO pretzels, right? So like, it didn't make sense. And I was like, my husband was on board, and he said, when you come to your spouse with these ideas, and I'm a 7 on the Enneagram, so like, I'm always full of wild ideas. And, I'm like, I don't know if I'm your textbook 7, because I think I'm a fun person, but like, I don't always just like crave and chase fun, but I am your daydreamer. I'm the one with all the wild ideas, but I don't always take action on all of them. Like, I need that part to kind of get me going, especially when it's like paired with that vision piece. But we walked the dog, and I said, I had a phone conversation today, and we talked about this, and he was like, he had no idea what any of this was either. And I was really worried about the $180 investment, because we really didn't have the extra $180 to put into this. We were 2 teachers in the South with, $1,500 a month in daycare and car payments at this point, right? You go back to that day in Buffalo where like I could take a $9,000 a year income, and we had plenty of income. And then it was like, now we both have full-time jobs and we're kind of scrambling every month. So he said, you know what's the worst that can happen? We both are leading a happier, healthier life. And I was like, it's a really great way to look at it, because we had just not been taking care of ourselves. So we pushed play. We'd put Brody to bed at 7. We'd push play by 7:15 every night on T25. And it was such a great way to bring us together, but it just really filled our bucket. And I just started sharing my journey. I just started showing up. I started sharing it. I started talking about my why, which, at first, like, my target market was like my former college athlete friends, and thinking like the intense people, right? But as I shared my story, which really was just craving more time. Like by taking care of myself, that 1 hour a day I had with Brody, I could give him more. I was no longer coming home at 6 yawning for an hour until I could rush and put him to bed, because I knew that when we put him to bed, now it was my time. Like it was our time to take care of us. We got to do that together. And so it just really reshaped and framed our evenings. Like our evenings are no longer like melting into the sofa, watching mindless television. Like we had purpose. It was purpose driven. And I was present with him for that hour because I had energy. I had been fueling my body appropriately all day to get ready to come home and do that workout. So everything really changed. And so as I started to share my story, my inbox started to fill up with women like me that were tired, that were working full time, didn't feel like they had time, but by not making time, it's like they had less time because they were just like shells. You know, they weren't pouring into themselves. And so I always tell my coaches, listen to the messages that are coming in your inbox. That's your niche market, right? Like it isn't always necessarily who we think we want to attract. It's what we're actually saying, like what's actually coming out of our mouth. So I wanted to kind of set that up for you because I know Kelly specifically wanted to know, like you guys wanted to hear a little bit like what my day looks like. It's really important that you guys understand what my day looked like 6 years ago looks very different than what my day looks like now. And I want to make sure that I'm clear about where it was 6 years ago, because I didn't have a ton of time every single day to build my business. But when I was building, I was incredibly intentional. Like I probably more so even now than I am, because I have like this abundance of time. And again, as a 7, right? Like we aren't necessarily the most organized people. I did better with like these really tight pockets of time. And so I truly built my business in the mom pockets. Like any pocket of time I had that wasn't dedicated to my son or my husband or like whatever other things I had to do were working on my business. And so it's hard for me to maybe add up how much time I was spending, but I would say that first year I probably throughout those pockets was probably 3 hours a day, but it wasn't like 3 hours. I didn't have like a 3-hour block of day I could truly build, but it was, after I showered and I had 20 minutes until I had to get my baby up, like I was emptying my inbox. My lunch was always a working lunch when I was working full time. I did not go out to lunch with people. I turned off my phones. I took that hour and I built my business at my desk because that was my hour. I got an hour for lunch. I was going to use the whole thing because I could eat my salad or whatever I was eating. Once my lunch was over, if I didn't have a student that was coming in, it just depended on what my schedule was like, right? And in the evenings, I carved out, maybe not every single evening, but probably 3 or 4 nights a week, I was working. And I communicated that with my spouse, because that's a big piece that I see with my coaches is that they're not very clear on what they're doing when their nose is in their phone or they're distant and they're distracted. I made it very clear to him, this is what I was doing. Now, my situation's probably a little bit more unique than other people in that my husband works most nights too because he's recruiting. He's on the phone. So if I knew he had recruiting calls Tuesdays and Thursdays, you bet that was a working night for me too. I mean, he couldn't hold that against me. He'd been on the phone for 2 hours. So I was going to be intentionally working on my business too. But like the nights we would have team calls would always be like a work night for me. So, and it still is now. Like Tuesdays is a work night for me. So my husband knows like he's in charge of like bedtime and that whole routine. And I usually work a little later on Tuesday nights because that's like the one night now I'm really dedicated. Once you're sitting down and you're already in there in the zone, and I don't know about you guys, but like after team calls, you can't turn your brain off anyway. So it's like, it doesn't make sense to like log off and like try to lay in bed because I'm not going to sleep. So it's just easier. I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to finish my stuff. So really in the beginning, but also like my commute. So I had a 30-minute commute each way. Podcasts. I was filling my brain. I was, that was something that was new for me. I never listened to personal development. Like I thought it was like such a bunch of crap, but I'm like, I found something. I mean, I'm just being honest. Like I was like, what? This is a vital behavior. And in the beginning, until you kind of reach a struggle, it doesn't really seem like you need it anyway until you kind of hit a struggle. And then you're like, I'm really glad I listened to that book, right? Like you have something to kind of come back to. But I also used that time, to call my mom. Like I kind of missed that time a little bit. Like I don't miss commuting, but man, I was really up current with like talking to like my friends. Like you would use that time to actually get on the phone with people when you didn't have anybody in the car screaming at you or like asking you questions. But I would also like call prospects, if you will. So I might have gotten a message in my inbox from a friend that wanted more information on my next challenge group. And I would just say, you know what, I'm driving at 5. You're driving at 5. Can we hop on the phone and talk for 10 minutes? It's just easier for me. And again, that might be more comfortable for me because it's just like, I like connecting with people that way, but it was easier for me to hop on the phone for 10 minutes, chit chat, give her all the details. And then later that night, send a message to follow up rather than go back and forth on Messenger. And it depended on the person. Like, I don't necessarily offer to pick up the phone and call everybody, but if it's somebody I have a really good rapport with, I'm like, can I just give you a call? It'd just be a lot easier if we could just kind of like hash through this and talk through that. So again, all those pockets, I was very intentional. Now, because I have more time, this is the first year I have both kids in school. I don't spend all day working, but my goal is to really get all of my work related stuff, obviously, done right about like before like 1 p.m. And my day is going to look a little bit differently just depending on like what I've got going on. And of course, now where I'm at my business, I have more like mentorship calls I'll do, or coming on calls like this with Kelly. Early on in my business, I said no a lot. I didn't take on any of this. I didn't have time for it. As much as you guys, I'm recharged by people. Like, I love these kinds of things. I had to really learn to set good boundaries, because if I wanted to get to my goals, I had to take care of what I needed to do first. And I posted about this last week that I didn't host a team call until I was a 5-star diamond, almost left my job, close to a 6-figure earner. Like, I didn't do it because we had, at that time, Team Courage calls my team could go on. We had Fit and Fierce calls my team could go on. While I wanted to build that community with them, I didn't have the time to offer it to them yet. And that might seem really selfish to some people, but I knew that my time would come where I could offer these calls and create a smaller community for our team. And once we did, it really was such a valuable thing. But I also didn't want them on calls like 3 nights a week. You know, like, I don't want them on a call on Monday, a call on Tuesday, and then a call on Wednesday. And I don't have time to be on a call 3 hours a night. So it's like, once we started offering calls, it was like, pick one and don't go on all 3. Like, that's just what you got to do. Because if you're spending all your time on calls listening, you're not doing the things that really move your business forward. Are those calls hugely helpful? Was listening to Summer so into me very important? Yes. But if I was listening to that, my camera was off and I was in my inbox. Like, I was working while I was doing it. So I just had to be really mindful and say no. And it's not easy for me to say no, because it's not really my personality. Like, I'm such a yes person, but coaching really taught me to say no more, say no to the things that don't help me immediately. And I had these really strong goals, and more so a vision that I wanted to be home with my kids. I wanted to get them on the bus and off the bus. It wasn't even wrapped around any income amount. Like, it needed to match my teaching income, but like, I didn't have a strong desire to be, a 6-figure earner. Like, it just kind of was the result of what happened from the amount of relationships and work that went into that strong vision, right? Like, that vision woke me up every day. It carried me. And so I was just really, really mindful about what I was saying yes to, and making sure that if I said yes to something, my other stuff was already done. So one of the other questions you guys had about phase 1, you guys, you need to stay in phase 1, like, almost all of the time, unless you're at a point in your business where, your income is where you've set your goals to be. Phase 1, like, that is the only thing that's going to move your business forward. Because what I always tell my coaches and my leaders, it's really hard when people come in and they do this with us and they kind of like step back, and then we feel really defeated and we want to drag them along. You guys, that's where phase 1 stays really important, and staying on offense. Because when we get to the point where we're dragging people, now we're on defense. It's that feeling I had when I was working in higher education, where I felt like I was just constantly putting out fires, or my inbox was just like heavy with doubt and excuses, right? Like, staying in phase 1 means that you continue to bring new life into your business. And I mean that in the most loving way, because I don't want anybody to seem like they're disposable, or, I hope that's coming off in the right way, but I don't want to play on defense all day. I don't want to open my inbox and just read like doubt and fear. Like, that's draining. Like, that's really hard on me too as a leader. So I need to make sure that I have that balance of those new excited coaches with all the right questions, balanced with some leaders that are going through a season, because that keeps me focused and energized, right? Because I've had those seasons, and I try to be as honest with my coaches through it as I possibly can, without, pushing fear or doubt on them. But because they obviously don't want their inbox loaded with my fear and doubt either. But you kind of have to use that as your own experience so that you can help them relate and help them through that. But the only thing that's going to get them through that is a vision. Like, if they don't have a strong vision of what they want this business to be, it's going to wear you down. Because rank and recognition, like, yes, I get it, you guys, that stuff's important and it kind of keeps your fire going. Maybe it's easier for me to say that because I'm just not a rank and recognition driven person. Like, I'm very Ruby, but I'm motivated by a challenge. That's that 7, right? Like, I need to constantly be challenged, but I don't want to be on stage. Like, I would rather be painted into the back of the wall, right? Like, it's important for my team to see that, but I'm like, I'm not chasing any of that. And so sometimes, like, our Ruby Reds, when they're chasing just like the stuff versus chasing the challenge or the vision, we have to kind of reel them in and like give it to them realistically. So you got to spend a lot of time in phase 1. I mean, for me, even now where I'm at my business, I'm still like 70% my own personal activities, 30% my team. I know that it's important I give back to my team, but I have a team of leaders too. So we work together and we delegate. You can't do this by yourself. I mean, you really can't. I mean, our whole compensation plan is built on you with like teams of teams, right? So you can't do this by yourself. You've got to figure out how to lift up people into leadership, have them lead groups. Like, my monthly challenge groups that I run, my new coaches run those for me. I mean, I'm in there and I'm commenting and I'm engaging and I'm cheering them on, but I give them full ownership to run those groups every single month. It gets them into inviting out of the gate because they're like, oh, I'm leading. I should probably have some people here, right? It lets them see it's just not that hard. It lifts them up in leadership. They feel supported because I put them in a thread. They make success pods. They kind of work through all of this together. And I'm there. They know that they can do that, but I can't do it all by myself. I can't run the monthly challenge group. I can't run the free group. I can't run the sneak peek all by myself. If you do that all by yourself, you're going to be exhausted. So you look into the different pockets of who needs to help you with that. My new coaches help with I shouldn't even just say new coaches. Like, it could be a coach that's not necessarily new, but they're leaning back in. Great. Come help me lead a group. That's going to make you show up every single day. The free groups, those are really kind of like my coaches that just want to get their feet wet. Like, they may not be new, they could be, but it's like, it's your ones that aren't really there yet inviting to the challenge group, but they're okay inviting to a crockpot group, right? And I usually allow those for like the whole team. So I dig deeper into my downline so I can pull some of those people up. And then our sneak peeks, I invite our leaders, usually emerald and above. A lot of times it's our diamonds or star diamonds. But, to me, leadership is influence. So diamond doesn't necessarily mean that you're a leader. Like, I've got emeralds that are phenomenal leaders on my team because they're influencing a lot of people to take positive change and they're showing up. So I want to lift them up because by doing that, they might just feel more confident to invite more people in because they're sharing their story. And so those are kind of the ways that I make sure that I stick to my own personal activities and then the 30% on my team. So, you don't need to recreate the wheel either. I mean, we typically go back and we look at what did we do this time last year, what worked, what didn't work, and we can't just keep doing the same things, but we can certainly we know the ebb and flow of the year. We know how the seasons go, so we can really look at what we did last year and adjust it. So like October, we always typically do like a Rocktober, and it looks different, but it's always like a team challenge, a point challenge of some sort. It's just the things they should be doing anyway, right? But they get to kind of lead the way and bring the energy. So I don't have to always be the person that's showing up and bringing all the energy. I want to see my other coaches come in and bring the energy too. That keeps everybody fresh rather than me just like being the only person that's like harping down the information, right? Because then it's just kind of, I don't want to be like a leader amongst a group of people. I want to be a leader amongst leaders. And in order to do that, you got to get people sharing and in a growth, like that growth space. All right, there's some questions here, Kelly. Is there anything that you want me to answer that's been asked or?
Yes, they were asking, this is really helpful too. Thank you for all of it's been really helpful. I love how you talked about like you need to be driven by your vision, not by like rank and things. Because I even feel like this past season's been that for me. Like every time I start to compare myself to others, when I really reflect, I'm moving my vision. So that's might not be measured in other successes right now, but that was really helpful for me to hear. Okay. Angie asked, what do you, how, now that you've hit the goal of being home, how do you keep moving forward? What is your new goal?
So if I'm being transparent, that has probably been one of the biggest struggles for me, was because, I was this hard focus on getting home, and then you get home and you kind of want to just like be still, because you're like, like you got to the summit, right? Like you're there, you can look down and like see all the fruits of your labor. And so I really spent like a year there, because I was still like in focus, momentum kind of mode, but you kind of wanted to like chill a little bit. And I see this happen with some of my coaches that push towards diamond. Like they get there and they're like, I'm just going to like sit back and chill. And I'm like, well, no, we can't do that yet. Right. Like, you've got 3 going inactive next week. We got to keep moving. But you want to honor that, like that season of hustle. So, we talked about this at leadership, and I've talked to Summer a lot about this, because I am not driven by money. Like sometimes I feel like my message comes off a little that way, because doesn't come off that way, but I share about the financial rewards or being home with my kids, but like my motivation was home with my children. So like anything beyond what would just help us be able to make that come to life was like a true blessing. And so for me, what keeps me going and keeps me working is that through my story of sharing the freedom this business has offered, I have built a team of women that want that too. And so I'm committed to helping them do that. Like that's now where my vision and my purpose is that I want them, whatever it is, not all of them want to be home full time with their kids, but whatever that is for them. But I do have a lot of women that come to me that want that, because that was my story, right? And so really committing to that. But also, the other part of my vision is really just, helping my children understand that, you can be whatever you want with hard work and dedication and commitment and serving others and showing up and doing this, like having them be involved in this and like really seeing what it is that I do every day. Like it's really fun as they get older, because when they're little, they have no idea what the heck I'm doing, right? And like now it's really fun to have them like pop in on my stories or like help with cooking and like me share, well, I'm doing this so that I can share it in my challenge group and show them how to make healthy swaps for carbohydrates or something, and then it's like, well, what's a carbohydrate? So it's like really teaching those lessons. But in terms of like big vision stuff, that is a little bit of a struggle for me, because it's not about like a bigger home or a lake house, I mean, I told my husband, I was like, I want our kitchen redone, and I don't really care about quartz or marble or granite. I just want a space where we can all gather. Like I want a space where our families can come and enjoy the holidays, because our kitchen is fine now. It's just very dated. I'm like, I would like it to be like warm and inviting and like have an island where all the kids can grab their stools and help me make the cookies or whatever it might be.
I love that. That was kind of what happened when we added on to our house. Like we had a little tiny galley kitchen, and that was when we had 6 kids. And I told Courtney, like, I'd like to have a kitchen where I don't want to like kick everybody out when they come in.
Get out of my way.
They can't move. And then, so when this is a good, I think a lot of people have this question, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. When people say they want to build and then they just don't do anything, I mean, what do you, I think it's 2 sides of it. Like, first off, how as a leader do you handle that personally, to not take it, you know what I mean? Because you have people that come in and they're like, I'm going to do this. And then they're like, where are you? And they'll keep telling you. And so it's hard to not have that drag you down. Like when you talk, but also what do you feel helps them the most?
I mean, honestly, being really honest and transparent, I will say, like in the beginning of my business, I was really afraid to offend anybody or to say something I didn't think that they would really like. But I realized as a leader, I'm not a very strong leader if I'm not being honest and transparent about, one, the actual work it'll take to help them get to that goal, but then holding them accountable to it. So whenever I ask them for their goals, I always say, can I hold you accountable to this? Like, do you give me permission to hold you accountable to this? And if they're not fulfilling their end of the bargain, it's like, I always say, have your goals changed? Because if they have, we need to talk, and I need to know what those are. if I don't know where you want to go. Sorry, I got an echo here.
Oh, that's okay. No, that's really good. I like that thing too of asking, like, have they changed? So it gives them permission to tell you, like, if they have. Because sometimes I think people get nervous because they change their mind and they don't want to, like, hurt our feelings either sometimes.
Right. Well, I always think that's sort of, hold on. I have an echo. Let me see if that helped. Did that help? Maybe. Sometimes I have to like mute and unmute. I always felt that way too. And maybe, I don't know. I think the thing is that whenever they're not truly holding up or doing the things that they know they're capable of, they're always going to be a little distant and detached anyway, because they're going to feel, one, that they might have let you down, but they're also know that they've let themselves down, right? So I would rather there just be some level of honesty and transparency there, so I know where to push them. Like, I don't want to drag anybody to the top of the summit. Like, I want to be locking arms and going together. Like, that's the fun way for us to all get there. Not to say that there's not going to be the people that have to kind of like push up the people in the back if they get tired or, you know, something happens in life, but we can't assume responsibility for what they're not willing to assume responsibility for. So as much as we can release that from ourselves too, and release them from that, and just tell them, like, you don't do this for me, like, do this for you. Maybe we need to really dig deep and work on that vision. Because my business looks different than it did 6 years ago. If I could, I should probably count up the number of star diamonds and diamonds that have canceled or quit or don't answer any messages from me. Like, just being honest, that was the hardest part for me about this business. Was somebody said to me early on, and it didn't make sense, because at that point, like, you have all this momentum going, the people who got you here won't take you there. And I was like, no, that won't happen to me. No, that'll happen to others, but that won't happen to Rock Solid. You guys, I have had 5-star elite coaches quit. I have had star diamonds quit. 2017, I think I had 4 star diamonds and 3 personally sponsored diamonds all quit.
Yeah. Wow. That was like the win.
It was hard on me, you know, but I was like, you know what? I can't make any, I had to know that it wasn't anything that I did, right? Like, it wasn't anything that I did. And that was, you know, at first you assume some of that. And I have let some of that, you know, there's pieces of that have continued to like eat away at me as you move forward, because this is a people business, right? So you want to go there with all the people that want your help. And, you know, at one point they do, and then they change their mind, and it's hard for you not to feel like you did something wrong. But at the end of the day, you know, and maybe you did, but like, I know in these particular cases, it was nothing that I did, you know, it was their own personal decisions, and I have to be okay with their decisions too.
Yeah, no, this was so good. Do you guys have any other questions?
I do. It's kind of a hybrid between what you did before and deciding who you want to be and showing up as that person from the get-go. So mine was the question about starting Coach as well. And I shifted the way that I was recruiting coming up on a year ago, and it really drew a lot more people into my business. And so I flat out stopped recruiting for a discount and just was recruiting for people who wanted to work a business, which there's no guarantees. And I get that. And some of it truly is a numbers game, that when you are a 7-star diamond, you factually have more people than when you are a diamond coach. When I'm looking at my pool of 25, the percentage of that, it's the same percentage probably of people who work versus people who don't, but the number of people is much smaller because there's just fewer people. But what I want to make sure that I do is set my coaches up well and create to the best of my ability, an environment of growth without pressure. Because I don't want to drag people. And I have people on my team now who left teams that felt like it was just a numbers driven pressure game. But when I watch you guys, when I watch other teams who are having fun together and are enjoying each other's company that I've personally met, and honestly, I know that social media is different than real life, but I've met you, I've met Logan, I've met some of these people who you have amazing driven teams, probably the same percentage of people who tell me they want to work, but just more of them because there's more of you. But I want to create a culture of that, I don't want to say expectation because that's the wrong word, but a little bit of like, we're a successful team. We work, we have fun, but we work, and that's what this team is about, like a team culture.
Yeah.
And so I want to know like what you have done intentionally to do that, to promote that, and how you start. You sign up a coach, and I guess maybe I need to ask back further than that, but I mean, I know how you recruit publicly on social media because I can see it. I don't know what your private messages are like, obviously, but I know what you do publicly. But when you sign up a new coach, what then you invite them to do?
So I always, my thing that I do, no, I'm not a huge recruiter. I never have been. I mean, in terms of like, I remember being on corporate calls and then being like, your numbers like are so much different than some of like these top coaches. And I was like, well, I just believe in like strong relationships. You know, I mean, I feel like you can get people to do a lot more when you truly know them and understand them. So like for me, like a big month is like 8 coaches, but that doesn't happen very often. Like my goal is like 4 to 5 new coaches. And that might seem like that might overwhelm some of you guys there, but you know, I was a top 50 coach for 4 years, and they were like, your numbers don't match anybody's numbers. Like they're bringing in 10, 20 coaches a month. I was like, I don't know how to do that. Like,
right. And that's honestly, that's been where I have, which is why I was excited for you to come and talk to us, because when I hear that the top coach in recruited almost 1,000 new coaches in a year, I'm like, that's 3 coaches a day. That is not what I'm shooting for right now.
I mean, I think
I'm in a 3 to 4 kind of mentality right now.
I mean, I really, and you guys, this is like, depending on where you want to go with this business, and I tell my leaders this, I mean, this is just what I tell my diamonds and leaders. Your goal needs to be 3 to 5 new business builders every single month. And I don't want to tell anybody that to overwhelm you. I'm just being honest because attrition is real. So if you bring in 3 coaches, expect maybe one of them to be interested in working. So if you bring in 5, maybe you have 2. And so like you have to always be staying on that offense again, right? So when you're building your baseline of workers, and I mean, mine don't always get up and working in their first month. Like my goal is in their first 3 months to help them get their first, I mean, I would love for them all to jump in their first month and like get into action, but most don't, especially if they're coming in, they're new like me. I want them to have a transformation. I want them to be a product enthusiast. I don't want to push them into business yet because they haven't fallen in love with our products. If they haven't gone a transformation, I'm not going to keep them very long. And this is how it works. So I'm going to honor them as a challenger, and you know, they'll get started when they get started. But my goal is in their first 3 months to at least go Emerald and to get on the board with Success Club, if not hit it in the month 3, for a builder and a working coach. And like you, Sarah, I don't invite for the discount. I really just don't. I think when you do that, you throw away your commission, and our new coaches need those wins. Let them keep those wins. Let them. Now in building to diamond, sure, a lot of my diamond was probably discount coaches, right? Because you're kind of just like trying to get there, but then you got to keep growing from there and expanding your story so that you're bringing on business builders. But so when they come on with me, within 48 hours of their sign up, I like to get on the phone with them because they're already kind of hit, click, submit. They're having all these like second thoughts. Their brain is swirling. I want to just like get face to face with them. I love to do Zoom. Every Tuesday night at 8:15, we do like a new coach little kickstart. So we capture all the new coaches in the downline. But me personally with my coaches, I get on and I just tell them, I know this probably feels scary. You're probably a little overwhelmed. I felt that way too. Let me help you. Like open and bridge that gap. Like take those thoughts that they're thinking that you know they have because you had them, bring them to light, and then I usually just walk them through like, all right, I want you to really focus on yourself. Like you're going to share your journey. You're going to walk people through your journey with you and, you know, kind of navigate any conversations as they come along. But I don't really push them into inviting until month 2 because again, I want to honor them as a challenger. I want them at minimum, if they never invite, to be my most loyal discount member, right? Because if I don't get them there, then I'm just going to lose them anyway. And it's like, what was the good in that? Because I didn't help them. It wasn't about me. It was about them. Like I want to serve them and I want to help them. And if the end of the day, if they don't ever want to invite anybody, I hope that these products change their life as much as they've changed mine, right? And I can save them $20 a month on it as well. But anyway, so I do that, and then I usually get them in that we talk about things that they can invite to next, but we kind of talk about this for next month. But I always keep them in the loop about what I'm inviting to, because the people that are like me that just are going to jump right in and figure it out, I can't slow them down. I want them to know where they can go. And so I always let them know, like, my challenge group always starts the second Monday of the month. We always run a free group at the last week of the month. And so I let them know the things that are coming up so they're in the loop and they have communication on what's happening. But then I also always encourage them, please ask me all the questions, which this maybe goes against what other mentors might say. Like, I like the new questions from the new coaches in my inbox, because if it's something that like I want for them to bring back to the team page, I'll redirect them so I can answer it for everybody. But when they ask me questions, I know they're thinking. So if I don't ever hear from them, I'm like, well, that person's not thinking about any of this, right? So that's really, I just keep it really simple. I give them a few action items. I always have them make their list of 50 people they'd like to help lead healthier, more fulfilling lives. And some are like, 50 is too many. I was like, you can do it. And usually like a day or two later, they send it to me. I don't make them touch that list yet. I just want them to make that list. It's fresh. It's in their head. I want them just to like have something actionable. I also always recommend they read GoPro, which is, you know, a little old school, I guess, Eric Worre, but especially for people that know nothing about network marketing, just really makes it sound not scary at all. And I think we've got a lot of great modern day versions of that, but I like him. I think he's very simple. I think he, again, makes it seem not scary. Like, Get Over Your Damn Self is great too, but she makes it a little scary for me sometimes. And she adds all these extra steps in, like get your upline involved and do these three-way conversations. I don't want to do that. Like, I have enough messages in my inbox. I don't now want your prospects in my inbox too. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want them to take action there. So I love Eric Worre, GoPro. Again, it's old school, but I do not recommend my coaches start out reading You Are a Badass, Girl Wash Your Face. Here's the reason why. You guys, that is not a book that's going to grow your business. That is a book that's going to give you all the feels and make you feel warm and fuzzy and give some good social media posting, but it did not talk to you about network marketing. Did not tell you how to earn a paycheck. So I want you to read those books because I love those books, but I took them off my new coach suggestions and put books on there like The Compound Effect, GoPro, Slight Edge. I think Energy Bus is a good one you can leave on there if they want more of like a story. Untethered Soul, like books that are going to get them digging deep and thinking beyond just, yeah, I'm awesome. Like, I can do this, right? That's great. I want you to feel that way, but that's not giving you the things that you need to take action on. Does that make sense? So whenever I have coaches tell me they're reading that, I always say, well, what else are you reading? Like, that's got to be paired with like something that is business minded. Like, that's like the same as reading, to me, a very like a nonfiction book or a fiction book, because it's a good story, right? But unless you do something with that story, it doesn't really drive your business forward. And we know if our coaches don't drive their business forward, we're going to lose them. So if they're not earning a paycheck, I mean, that if they came in to earn a paycheck and they don't earn a paycheck, guess what? They're out. It's too hard. I'm not going to do this. So you have to kind of just set the tone there. Discount coaches, I don't typically get on the phone with unless I know they're not really going to be a discount coach. You know, you can always just kind of tell with those people, but I don't want to overwhelm anybody, because I think sometimes what we do in this business is we put too many steps in place. We make this seem really complicated. And I just want them to get into the activities that are going to help them earn their first, I don't even care, $7 paycheck for Energize or whatever it is that they're retailing. Because I know it's not just about money, but like when your spouse, I just had a conversation yesterday with a new coach. She's been a coach for like a month and a half. She really wants to do this, but her spouse is already like really doubting her. And I said, it's because you haven't earned a paycheck yet. And she goes, how did you know that? I was like, because I've been here for 6 years. I know exactly how these conversations go when the spouse tells you they don't want you to do this anymore. It's not because they don't love you and they don't believe in you. It's because they think that your nose is just in your phone with all this new obligations and priorities. But like, how are you showing up and providing for your family? You joined because you told him you were going to earn income. Well, you need to go start earning some income. You need to go help some people. and like, again, I send it in such a place of love, but it's always what it comes down to, even when they're not motivated by money. It's always the time that I'm spending isn't worth the payout. It's like, well, you need to go invite some people. So sorry, got off on a tangent there.
No, but it's true. I mean, and I think like even when we self-evaluate and think we're working all the time, like we're reading the compound effect right now as a team. And like, if you track your behaviors, then it opens your eyes pretty big to like, oh, well, I was just actually scrolling for like an hour. I wasn't effectively inviting. Thank you so much, Courtney.
You're
Megan,
welcome.
you're asking, you mean the coaches she thinks won't be discount coaches who say they're discount coaches? What do you tell them?
Explain. So I have a discount coach, and she like goes through trying all of the products, falls in love with, I mean, she's probably tried everything. And every once in a while she'll be like, oh, my coworker wants to try Energize. And so I'm like, and she also doesn't really like her career. So I'm kind of like, maybe I should talk to her, but I don't want to make her feel overwhelmed because her job, one of the reasons she wants to leave her job is because it's a time suck and it's really stressful. She's a cop in Birmingham, Alabama. So to give you perspective.
Well, I don't think we can allow our fears to judge what would be best for them. Like what I hear you saying is like, I don't want to overwhelm her because I don't want to kind of scare her away. And I've been there, but a couple of things that I do in this situation, when I've got like this discount coach that's rocking it, I might ask if I can share their transformation on social media or something, or like I can shout them out on social media, like give a picture with you and her together from Summit or whatever, or however you know her, and just like do like a spotlight on her and tag her, because then what happens is like other people see her and they're like, oh, what is she doing? And like, then they might get a message, and then I can help them navigate those messages, because I think sometimes they don't think that people will be receptive of what they're doing until we can show them it's just not really that hard, and that, yeah, set them up. You guys, we are networkers. How do you tap into their market? That's what you got to ask yourself, right? Like in the beginning of this business, it was like, okay, so I know Sarah and I know a bunch of Sarah's friends, but I can't like reach out to Sarah's friends. So how do I get Sarah's friends' eyes on what Sarah's doing so that they see it? So I would do a lot of like transformation posts. Like sometimes I would do, for a long time I was doing like, I should go back to this, but I was doing live Tuesdays. I was doing live transformation calls where I'd have them on Facebook Live with me, and I'd interview them. Basically, it was an interview on Facebook for their friends to see. It wasn't for me. This was not about me probably selling anybody anything. It was to help Allison or Kara, whoever, get eyes on their page so their friends could see what it was that they're doing, because they weren't comfortable talking about it yet. So how could I help them?
That's really good.
That's really groups. I mean, this is where groups are helpful, a free group, right? Or something where you can really highlight her and show her off, but you got to get her friends, you got to get her people seeing that first, you know?
Mm-hmm. No, that's really good.
That's where social media is so helpful, because we can get what we want to say onto their page and just really like lift them up too, like give her warm fuzzies in that too, just brag on her.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I like that a lot. I think that helps to show belief. Like part of it too is like believing in them kind of before they can believe in themselves. That's really good. Thank you so much, Courtney. So
you're welcome.
We usually close on a little prayer, and then I'm happy. Thank you. I just really appreciate this. This is exactly, as we close out the year, I just want them to hear, and it helped me too, just so many of the things, like we're constantly adjusting and shifting and growing, you know? But I hope you all heard that a lot of you guys are doing a lot of this well too. Like a lot of what you're saying, I'm like, oh, this is good because I see them doing it, you know? And so it's good to hear that and be like, oh, okay, good. Some things are on track. You know what I mean? So
and that's usually how it goes, right? Like whenever you go to and Kelly, you might've felt that a little bit of this way at leadership too. It's like a lot of it is just affirming what you're doing is right. And like you're planting the seeds and your season is going to come. But what I encourage you guys to do is like, Josh Coates said this on a training we were on last week, but he said, don't lower your standard to meet where you feel your team is. We have to constantly be raising the bar, because guess what happens? We raise the bar for everybody. And you can do that in ways that don't intimidate or create this competitive environment, right? Like decide what you want to measure. You know, we measure lives change. So how can we measure that? It doesn't have to be Success Club points. You know, you can use that as a measurement tool, but don't exclude the people that are doing the things too. But speed of the leader, speed of the pack. So if you want your team to grow, level up. Like 1 to 2 coaches is your baseline, why not make it 3 to 5? Because then what happens is your team starts bringing in 1 to 2. Because if you're bringing in 1 to 2, your team's probably not bringing in anybody. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, for sure. I know that's something I'm hoping to really increase, this is the recruiting part, like number wise. I feel like I have a really good month and then like a dry month and then a really good. So for me, it's a funnel, more of like a funnel thing that I'm trying to work on. So, but that's so true. I know Josh was good at the puke goals.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Well, let's say quick prayer. Lord, I'm just so thankful for Courtney. Thank you for having her come speak to us today, Lord. I pray for her and her team and for her family, and just give thanks for the light that she is and the way she serves her team and her customers so well, Lord, and that we get to be a part of the same company with this beautiful mission. And I pray for all of the coaches here that you would help us to finish this year well, that you would help us to serve our clients well, and to have the courage to invite more people into this opportunity in the business and in the challenge groups, Lord. Open our eyes to see who needs this and give us the courage to speak the words they need to hear and the ears to listen to what they need. God, I'm just so grateful for this opportunity and for this business and this team. And I thank you, and we offer all these things in your most holy name. Amen. Thank you so much, Courtney. I appreciate it. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks, guys, for having me. All right, bye.